books or co-authored books, and they should get connected as well, and maybe they'll do an event like this, and maybe this could be an ongoing thing in the future here at the library, and I think that would be really cool, because each little thing sparks the next, right? So somebody up here invited you today, and that's likely to mean that you have already read the story that they've written, or maybe you've heard the story that they've written, and yet there are other people here that you don't know anything about. And so that's what we're hoping today, is that you learn about the other people. And for those of you who I bribed, twisted arms, begged, or just laid on the guilt trip, or used years of friendship to get you here, thank you. You know who you are. And so with a variety of genres represented here today, I think that that's, really cool that we're representing a lot of nonfiction, fiction, whether it's, a very vulnerable public opening of private worlds, or it's a very helpful, educational, or expansional piece for personal or spiritual growth, or maybe it's a creative combination of ideas and imagination to bring something brand new to life. It's all in the mind of the reader, how they take that, right? And all books have merit. All stories matter. Our stories, your stories, whether it's past, present, or future. So our reality might have ended up in our books, or it could be pure imagination for some. Hello, welcome. Books are vehicles for expansion, and all books are welcome. We can read, or we can listen. Thank God for audiobooks, right? We can listen to these books, and we can tell others about them. We can encourage them to read them and get a copy. Books can make us happy, sad, angry, confused, grateful, enlightened, frustrated, so many things, right? We can get super educated, or we can throw a book on the floor and be like, I'm done with that, I don't need to see that, I don't need to read it. We can totally ignore them, and that's the beauty, is that we can walk away from something. So there's no cost for being here, and yet it costs your time. So thank you for that. And if you have a copy of one of our books and you'd like for us to sign it, we will be doing that afterwards, and we'll be out in the lobby. And if you have all kinds of friends and family members that you love to have been here today, and yet they didn't make it, and they want to come later, tell them to come and visit us, because I have a feeling we're going to be sitting out there talking to each other for 3 hours. So each of us is just an ordinary person doing our thing, going through life, getting from there to here and here to there. But today we want to share just a little bit about our stories and how they got written, and maybe what the story is behind it. So you'll be hearing from Amy Welker, and her nom de plume is Amy Kvell, and she'll tell you about that. Lynn Howard and Mia Gowen. Mia's the one with the pink hair. Mike Kurtz and Shaen Mehl, and her nom de plume is Shaen Layle. And if you have specific questions, like I said, you can ask afterwards, or I'll use the ones that are in the bowl, and you might think of something else. So I'm going to introduce each author as we get to that person. So I'll just start with my story, and there are people that I know that are late, and I told them that if you're late, you're just going to miss my part. So whatever. They'll get to the good stuff though. So just a few weeks ago, on July 26th, Corey, my husband, he's the video guy today. Corey and I celebrated, wouldn't really say celebrated, but we marked July 26th, the 17th anniversary of our daughter Emma's death. This was her second death. This is the one where she actually stayed on the other side, and she didn't come back into her body. And she was 8.5 years old when she made that transition. And her story is my story, and my story is her story, and vice versa. Emma was born a normal baby, and life was moving along, and Ian, her big brother, was getting used to having a little baby sister, and things were And she was 3 months old on April 30th, 1999. And because her brain was without oxygen for about 15 minutes, she suffered a traumatic brain injury. And so that was the day that original Emma died. And that's the day that new Emma came into our lives. So we really had no idea what to expect, and we were kind of shell-shocked. And the following 8 years were filled with all kinds of things that no parent really ever remotely considers. And when your daughter spends weeks in the hospital and then over years, months in the hospital, which we called Cardinal Lynn Resort and Spa, we'd say, we're going back to the spa, Emma. When she does that, and she requires 24-hour medical care, your home kind of becomes a whirlwind of activity. And it's a revolving door for nurses and therapists and helpers of all kinds. And life is very different, and it's very stressful. And it's kind of like just trying to get from one minute to the next. And keeping that smile plastered on your face as much as you can. And trying to keep life as normal as possible for your son, who is wanting to have a normal life and do all the things that a normal kid gets to do, right? So, then we moved back into Emma, and she was a very special human. And while she was alive on this earth, while her little soul was inhabiting that body, she had a purpose. She had a big purpose here, and it was to teach me and everyone around her patience, which I didn't have a lot of, humility, which I didn't have a lot of, and acceptance, which I was learning, but I'm much better at now. I'm also sure that her purpose included opening my eyes and the eyes of others to things that were totally foreign to me, things that I hadn't really considered, things that made me think that, oh, maybe I'm not in control of anything, and maybe that God is much bigger than can ever be defined and is not in a box, and we cannot comprehend. So after Emma died the second time, the one when her body was completely finished here and life changed again, I found that it had changed drastically. And I was searching for my place again. And I was no longer the mom of a special needs child. I was no longer the coordinator of all things medical. But I was still Ian's mom, Corey's wife, lucky him, right? A full-time employee for a local bank, and somewhere underneath there was me. And I had to find me. And that's part of what my book is about, or my chapter. So when Emma, the original Emma, died 25 years ago, there were lots of twists and turns, and then 17 years ago, when she made that second transition, more twists and turns have happened in my life. And people who knew Emma and all the things that surrounded her kept asking me to write a book. And that freaked me out. And I would say no, and not just no, but you know what? Because who could even consider writing a whole book like these people did? They wrote whole books. And then I met a woman standing in line at a conference, and she and I struck up a conversation talking about being moms of special needs children. And when she heard about Emma's story, she said, "Are you going to write a book?" And I'm like, "No, I don't have time for that. I can't even wrap my head around that." And she said, "Well, I'm part of a collaborative effort with 10 women total, and one of them had to drop out. And we're looking for that 10th woman to write a chapter." And I said, "A chapter? Okay." So you know that little light bulb that comes on in the cartoons? Well, it actually kind of lit up over my head while I'm standing in line at this conference in Austin, Texas. And so that's where my author story began, was I became the co-author of a collaborative effort with a group of women. And these women had amazing stories, tragedy to triumph, overcoming adversity, and really just telling these really heartfelt, true, transparent, vulnerable stories of how they got through some of the most awful times of their lives. And our publisher kind of took things to another level. And she decided to spend a whole lot of money on things that were not part of the what was happening February 29th, 2020? The world was kind of starting to close in. The United States was in this kind of pre-panic mode. So what was supposed to be a really big event ended up being a very small event. And our publisher lost her shirt because she managed it very poorly. And so what happened was during the pandemic, we gave her grace for a year. And we kept saying, where's our book? And she never published it. And so at some point, she finally just sent us a nice little message and said, it is complete. Force majeure. Do you know that legal term? Kind of out of your control. She said, I cannot complete the project. Goodbye. So long. It's all been great. And we're all like, what? So not only did we just take a collective inhale and hold it for like a year and a half, being very resentful and angry and frustrated, we finally blew that breath out and said to let it go. We did. We let it go. And then a year after that, we reconvened. And there were 6 of us who were able to come back together, and one of the women that had dropped out that I took her place, she had her own contract with Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House. And she said, come along with me. We can all do this together. I'm never going to write my own book. I'm a single mom, and I can't do it. So that became the new book, Dancing with Darkness, Stories of Healing and Light. And so I'm just a co-author. I wrote a chapter. It's a really long chapter. Some of you have read it. These people have written whole books. Some of them have written multiple books. I have not. I just get to stand up here and talk on the microphone because I wrote a chapter in that book. But the other people that were part of my book, their stories matter too, just like all of yours. Christina Cole, she's an energy healer who lives in Iowa. She's a breathwork facilitator who does somatic breathwork. Irma Cook is a neonatal nurse practitioner in North Carolina. She wrote about dancing through grief. Deborah Evans is an IT specialist in Arkansas who wrote about dancing through sexual abuse and major health issues. Tammy Faust is a government employee in land management who wrote about dancing through a shattered heart. And Chris Hansen is a leadership and marketing trainer in Pennsylvania who wrote about dancing with disabilities. None of them could be here today. Surprise. They're a little farther away. A little bit about me. Many of you are in the room because I've met you through some portion of my life, or you've known me forever. Thank you for being here. I'm a health and wellness ambassador, and I'm very passionate about nutrition, about whole food plant nutrition, about exercise, about fitness. I work with the Juice Plus Company. I teach Zumba at the Farmington Civic Center. Some of you are in my Zumba classes. Thank you for dancing through the doors today. I am on a mission to create better health at the cellular level and more joy at the cellular level. And I was born and raised here in Farmington. When Corey first came to Farmington, before we got married, he said, I want to live here. And I was like, what? No, I'm out of there. But we came back, and I'm so glad we did. And that was in 1995. Our son lives in Colorado. He's a grown-up man with his own life, and he has his own book. And if you come and talk to me later, I'll tell you about that, and it's a wackadoodle story. I love sharing with people about their stories and capturing them on my Happy Cells and Things Facebook group. And I would love for you to check that out whenever you can. And a fun fact about my book is that Corey Powers did the cover artwork. So, that is a little bit about me, and now I want to start introducing our other authors. And first, we're going to start with Amy Welker. Again, she goes by Amy Kvell on her book. Amy's book, Small Hinges Move Big Doors, was an Amazon bestseller in her category when it was first released in 2023. I've known Amy quite a long time. She used to come dance with me in my Zumba class, and then her life got way too busy, and her schedule didn't match up to my schedule, and you'll hear why. Amy is the founder and director of Small Hinges Ministries. She's a motivational speaker, a certified life and wellness coach, and Amy has been coaching for more than 10 years within her teen and women ministries. She serves as a chaplain in her local community through her husband Jason have 4 daughters, Vivi, Sophie, Gracie, and her bonus daughter, Ariana. It's Amy's goal to equip women to study God's Word in their daily lives, to inspire small hinges to move big doors, and to empower women to see their value and their kingdom's purpose. You can also find this local author and her husband serving up treats at the new hospitality ministry they founded called Big Door Coffee House in Deloge, which opens in October. Amy.
Yes, thank you. We don't want to stand still, so I have to move. So I apologize, but don't apologize. So yeah, I mean, she said a lot of the stuff I was going to say in my 7 minutes. Thanks, Julie. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, right around 2019, right before COVID, it's kind of like the COVID just knocked out all of us authors. But I was sitting down and I was just writing out, having some quiet time with God, and all of a sudden I felt like sometimes authors will say a download happens, like a story idea, a poem, something, and you cannot stop writing, like your paper is hot, okay? And you're just like, and that was me, like my kids were napping extra long, and I'm just like working it, and the next thing I look and I'm like, these are all the things after doing 20 plus years of ministry that have changed my life, and they're super practical, and I think that other people could use it to find joy, because I think something that we're missing most of the time in life is being present and seeing the joy in the moment. And I was like, so how can I help people learn to do that? Because it's not something that we're naturally all good at, right? I mean, it's hard. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm dyslexic, so it's going to take me a hot minute to like write. I've never written anything. I've always journaled and kept writing to myself. But I was like, this is what I think I'm supposed to do. And as she said, I've been married for 19 years. I have 3 girls. Now they're 15, 13, and 9. But at the time they were littles. They were younger. And so I was like, okay, so I made a deal with myself. And this is something that's really great about writing, is you kind of have to make a game plan for yourself or you won't do it, right? You'll put it off. Oh, I'll do it later. Or I'll make it happen. It'll be fine. I have time. What if you don't have time? What if this week is the only week you have and your story needs to help someone else's life and you didn't write it? You didn't pick up the piece of paper and write it. Your story has value. And so I was like, you know what? No excuses. I'm going to write every Thursday. I'm going to sit down and flesh out each hinge. So instead of chapters, they're called hinges. And so I'm going to flesh it out. And so every Thursday I would do it. And because I'm a talker and I'm dyslexic, I would produce a video on Facebook teaching it. Because I'm a teacher. I'm naturally, that's just how I roll. So I was just going to teach it on Facebook. And so I did this every day for a whole year. Every Thursday. Even if I was on vacation, I used the roller coaster behind me as a visual example of what was going on in my life and the story and the things that I was writing and working on. And so it was just this really cool experiment to see what would happen if you did that. So then I had all these different hinges I could choose from to put together my book. But publishing was a whole ordeal. You will always find there's going to be hiccups along the way. No one ever just gets it right the first time. It's going to take multiple edits, and there's going to always be. My book was 2 months late over one thing, and it's kind of funny what the thing is. 557, okay? So it was literally 5-5-7, which is supposed to represent a breathing pattern. Because as a life coach, I was trying to help people to learn to breathe more. So it's supposed to be breathe in for 5, hold for 5, release for 7. That put me back 2 months. 2 months, because my book was being sent to a different country to be edited, and I didn't know it. And so the country people kept saying, oh, 557. No, please put back 557 just like this. Oh, so you mean 5,570? No, please put it back down as 5-5-7. And what's funny is it's supposed to help you relax and breathe. And so all my girlfriends are dying because they're like, Amy, of course, the thing that you're trying to teach is to relax, let life be, find the joy in the little things, and you're sitting here fighting over somebody about how to breathe nicely. But that's what set me back, but it actually ended up helping me because like you had a big event planned, I had this huge retreat and conference because I'm a motivational speaker. I had this huge retreat and conference. I was going to have all these people out to Eagle Scout, the Ozarks. We're going to dig into the Word, celebrate, and learn about what I was teaching, use the book. The book wasn't out. So I got to talk about it. I was like, oh man, what am I going to do now? So I was like, it's going to be okay. We're just going to talk, and I taught on several of the chapters, and it went awesome. We ended up, I thought maybe 30 girls just kind of hanging out. I was like, let's do something chill. Let's just do something small and easy. My friends were like, oh no girl, we're going to make this a party. So we had like 60 plus ladies at this retreat. like, okay, cool. Well, then, a month later, came my book. And I worked with a book launcher, and if you've never heard of that before, they're really helpful. Karen Sargent is the one that I use. She's the local, and she's wonderful. And so she helped me launch my book, and she says, if we're lucky, wouldn't it be cool if you got bestseller? I mean, that would be really cool. And I was like, we're gonna pray about it, we're gonna see what happens. Yes, that would be awesome, because that really helps me to get indoors so that I can share my message, because my message is more like, for me, is why I wrote my book, because I wanna have a platform to speak on. Is really important. I wanna make a difference in the community. And she was like, okay, well, we're gonna do this, we're gonna see what happens. And so I said to every person I knew, on my birthday, will you buy my book? And when you tell everybody you know to buy my book on my birthday, May 10th was the day before my birthday. We have been launching all this stuff, and I am watching the ticker on Amazon as my book moves up. And I'm just like, come on, Lord, you got big plans for this, I know. Because in Zechariah 4:10, it says that God does not despise small beginnings. And I started off very small and had no idea what God was going to do with my book. I just was being obedient and just said, I know I'm supposed to write this story. I know I'm supposed to share these practical tips and how to help people find joy in themselves, and then they can reflect it into their family, and then they can do it in the community. But if you're not okay and you don't have joy, how are you supposed to pour that out to someone else? And then how are you going to feel doing it in the community? You can only fake to make it for so long, right? Okay, so I'm used to people saying something back because I'm used to talking motivational people and not writers. I'm like, right? You're all like, and sometimes I amen, but we didn't get that here. And that's okay. We're a vocal library. I understand. It's okay. But anyway, what was really wild is I went to bed and I just had to hand it over. I was at place 3, and I was still really happy about that. And I was just like, hey, place 3 is pretty amazing. I'm just a nobody here in Farmington, just writing my book because I think it's important and I want to share my story. And I went to bed and I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning because it was May 11th, my birthday. And I was like, did it happen? And I screamed. My husband wakes up and he goes, you got first, didn't you? I'm so excited. And so it's just been a crazy battle ever since then of just amazing things that God can do when you put your voice out there. And I just want to encourage you to put your voice out there, your poetry, your writings, whatever you're doing. I used the publisher Westbow Press, and I also had an equally bad experience, and so I would not say that that would be a good direction to go. But I was excited, and I learned a lot from the process. I had an atheist edit my book the first time I did it through, on purpose. You laugh, but I did it on purpose because I wanted people to know that I, as a life coach, I wanted to reach people for life coaching, and I also wanted to reach people for the Lord, but I wanted to do both. And so my atheist friend helped me to know how to communicate both sides in a clear way. So if you're not a Christian, you're like, that's not my bag. My book is still very helpful. There's a lot of practical tips in there, and 50% is for you, and 50%, or it can be all of it. But it was something that was important to me, and I appreciate so much this opportunity that Julie gave me to come and speak and share. And I have a podcast out, so if you're an Audible listener, the podcast Small Hinges Move Big Doors, please pick that up on Spotify or iTunes, and you can listen to my book. Also, we have, like she said, our coffee house opening in October. Come out and see us, because my book turned into motivational speaking and rotating and touring the United States monthly, and then it turned into me founding a ministry, and now it has got me opening up a coffee house so I can serve the whole community of Deloge and St. Francis County, because that's how much I believe that small hinges can move big doors. Thank you.
I did buy one of your books on May 10th.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I appreciate every single person.
So Amy has this great story, right? And she took that idea and she moved it to the next level. And then the next level, and then the next level. So next, we're going to introduce Lynn Howard, who's the president of the Parkland Writers Circle, and she brought Mia Gowen with her, and Mia is the vice president. Lynn Howard is a passionate author, and she's renowned for her captivating works. I've heard they're super captivating, actually. I've talked to people who have read them, and I've not yet, but I'm going to get them. In young adult and new adult fiction, she's authored 4 self-published novels, Blurred Lines, Flat Lines, Blood Lines, and Destined Lines, which delve deeply into the complexities of contemporary life, addressing social issues with compelling narratives. Sherry's dedication to the literary community extends beyond her own writing. In addition to the Parkland Writers Circle, she also serves as the municipal liaison for Missouri Elsewhere during National her commitment to fostering creativity and storytelling excellence. Gowen is a native of Missouri. She embodies creativity both as a florist and a dedicated writer, and with her hair. Since joining the Parkland Writers Circle in 2023, Mehl has blended her passion for floral artistry with her nighttime pursuit of crafting stories driven by the dream of publishing her debut novel. Known for her love of chai tea and the zest of lemons, Mehl brings warmth and vibrancy to the literary community, fostering an inclusive environment for writers. Mehl continues to inspire with her leadership and artistic contributions, leaving an enduring impact on the community. She's also the one that usually ends up making the floral arrangements for Emma's grave. So Sherry has her 4 books authored under her name, and one authored as the Parkland Writers Circle, A Story for All Seasons. And so I will let Sherry and Mia share now. You want to sit? Okay.
So you'll find I'm not a very good public speaker. I'm very much an introvert, so this is a way out of my comfort zone. I'm usually behind the pen and not in front of an audience. So I grew up in Farmington. I came here in high school, came from out of area. But I've always kind of had a joy for writing. So I dabbled in poetry. I was an editor on Nightlife staff here at Farmington. And I've always kind of had a passion for writing. So in the summer of 2015, I decided to kind of dive into this novel writing adventure. And how that started for me was I used to battle insomnia. So at night when I'm laying in bed and I can't sleep, I make up stories in my mind. And every night, wherever I would eventually fall off to sleep, I would pick up the next night and continue the story. So my series is all part of that insomnia-driven adventure, and it delved into this world that became the Blurred-Line series. So I have a passion for young adult fiction. I'm an avid reader, so that's kind of where I went with this. The series is a little bit darker than a lot of YA, so I don't really like to classify it as YA, and that's why I'm trying to classify it as new adult. It is contemporary fiction, but the characters really have some hard times. Like there's people facing addiction, bullying, physical abuse, things that all of us face in this world. So it's a little complex series that follows my character Bailey, kind of dives into her world, coming of age. So throughout the series she grows up. You see what trials
WC. I joined right after a Labor Day weekend last year. They happened to have a tent at the Labor Day picnic. I'm just walking around, I spot it, walk over immediately, and I'm like, what's this about? And Sherry very kindly explained it. I immediately signed up, and I have been a part of the PWC ever since. I am what you would call a practicing writer, have been for about 10 years. It started as just kind of an idea dump, much like you said, like all of a sudden, whoo, okay, I gotta start writing. It eventually, about 5 years in, turned into a real hobby where I was just writing whenever I could, right after work, late at night, in the middle of the night. And then probably about 3 years back, it really became real for me. No, I'm not published yet. I'm very close to that, but I did get to publish a short story in our anthology. That is something that I'm very proud of. And we have another anthology series coming next year, and I will have more short stories in that. I have found it very inspirational and very helpful to be a part of the PWC. We are just a collective of people who are just trying to get our work out. Maybe not out to the public, but just out of our heads and onto paper. We would love for more people to join. If any of you who have ideas in your head, you just want to get them out, and even if you just want to come in and listen to what we're talking about, we would love for you to join. It's a good time. We meet about 2 days a month, yes, about every other week. And this year we're going over genres. Each month is a different genre, and I've covered about 3 different genres now, because I tend to like to stand up and talk. Anything else? Am I missing anything? Is that everything? Okay, all right. Keep it short and sweet. We'll move on to the next person.
Thank you, Mehl. And I'm guessing that some of you might have questions about the Parkland Writer Circle, which you can ask at the very end when we break everything down and we move back to the other area. So now I would like to introduce Mike Kurtz. Mike Kurtz is from Park Hills, and he's a retired 30-year veteran police detective sergeant who currently works in public safety for a hospital. He and his wife Heather have 2 children, Harley and Sabrina. Mike has a passion to help hurting and lost people. He authored the book titled The Image and is currently working on 2 more books titled PTSD, Breaking Fear, and Bucket Joe. Mike is an active member of Crossroad Church with Pastor Dean Barry. He graduated Teen Challenge in 1983, and Mike is forever grateful to his foster parents, Kathy and Dave, his 2 foster sisters, Celeste and Becky, and he thanks the Lord daily for his sister Cindy. The Image is a book about his life as a child, which was full of murder, deceit, and abuse. He learned to navigate life with the help of the Lord and from watching the example of godly people that he surrounded himself with. Mike, come and tell us more about your book.
Okay, so where I got the title, The Image, is as a young child, I viewed homes and families around me, and in my mind, every house has a picket fence, every family is perfect, no troubles, but 9 years old, my whole world got basically turned upside down. My mother, she poisoned my father, he's a St. Louis County detective. She had sent me as a 9-year-old boy to go buy the poison. I had no idea what she was going to do with it. So as life went on, I got thrown into various foster homes, and really it was a nightmare. But there's a book, or actually there's an article written, I don't know if you guys remember the old front page detective magazine. Well, my mother is in there. Kathy's recipe for divorce: wine and a tablespoon of arsenic. And it's kind of a lengthy little article. I put it in my book. I decided that I needed to tell the rest of the story. So So the rest of the story was me finding my way, learning that my mother, she also had a part in killing my two little sisters, with Lisa and Michelle. When I was in foster care, and this is jumping way forward, when I was in foster care, my caseworker came to me and she asked me if I wanted to live with my sister. I told her my sisters are dead. And she said, no, you have a sister. She's alive. She's in Augusta, Missouri. And so I said, yeah, I'd love to live with my sister. And so this is where Kathy and Dave, my foster parents, came in. Went to live with them, and at the time, I would consider them atheists, and they're just going about life. They had great jobs, but they eventually found the Lord, and through them, I found the Lord. And then, fast forwarding a little further, 16 years old, I got into it with my foster father because he was about discipline. You know, you do something wrong, you're gonna face the consequences. I didn't, I have no concept of what a family should be, because my family had been ripped apart. My dad was dead, my two sisters were dead. My mom was in prison. I just had no way of understanding. So, I rebelled, and I wanted to go live with my blood family, who I didn't know, but they were all drug addicts, and they introduced me to the wonderful world of drugs. And so for the next 4 years, I went from a farm boy with farm bulk, I was a bulky little kid. I went from about a 185-pound muscle-bound kid down to about 125 pounds in 4 years. Did the whole alcohol, you name the drugs, I did it. And I found a program called Teen Challenge. I was like, right there, getting ready to be on the streets. Teen Challenge, it's a 9-month program. It's free. They have an 89% success rate, at least at that time, for helping people get off drugs, to stay off drugs. They did this study within a 10-year period. So if you graduate, 10 years later, they track you down, how you doing, what's going on. These guys stay straight. They don't give you drugs to get you off drugs. They give you a Bible. You walk out of Teen Challenge with they say it's equivalent to about a year's worth of Bible college. So after I graduated Teen Challenge, what am I going to do in life now? My foster father, I moved back in with them, and they're just such wonderful people. But we got to talking, and I said, well, I'd like to be an officer. And so I had a friend who is now deceased, but he was a police chief up around Union, Missouri. And he said, you'll never be a cop. There's no way. You can't do it. And so basically I took that as a challenge. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. So I told my foster father, I enrolled in a police academy. They took me in. And in the police academy, it's kind of interesting. In the homicide portion of the academy, they started talking about a family, and they wanted us to look for something more than a smoking gun or a bloody knife. So they started talking about a family in St. Louis County whose mother had poisoned her husband and about the little boy. So during one of the breaks, I said, would the family be the Kurtz family? He said, yeah. Well, I said, I'm the little boy. They said, okay, you passed this section. But, no, I said, I think it's great. The Lord can use horrible things that nobody should see and experience. Teach it. And it does good. But that's what this book is about. I've got a second book I'm writing on the PTSD. The PTSD I got from years of being an officer, working
USA Today bestselling author and a Kvell Award semifinalist who writes inspirational, cozy mysteries. Can't you just like picture sitting in a book with a cup of tea and your nice little light or reading that? She and her artist husband, Danny, have two rambunctious but adorable boys. They're very not rambunctious right now. And a shelter pup named Violet. Trained as a literary novelist and with a decade of librarianship under her belt, Shaen loves discussing all things bookish with her readers on her website and on social media. We're happy to have her here today to discuss her very bookish things with us, specifically talking about her two books, Honeybees and Legacies and To Heal a Heart.
Can everyone hear me all right? Okay. First, I would just like to say, having the benefit of being the last person on this panel, I'm in awe of all of these authors that have spoken already. I mean, what impactful stories, what courage they're displaying by, digging in and doing the work to get at these really meaningful stories mysteries usually have. They usually feature an amateur sleuth, so they're not going to be a police procedural or anything like that. They're going to have a sleuth who may know somebody on the police department, but they're just going to be a common citizen who might have some sort of special trait, like a photographic memory or specialized knowledge of a hobby that's going to enable them to have an edge on solving the crime over the average citizen. Number two, cozy mysteries usually take place in a tight-knit community, which growing up in small towns in this area of the state my entire life, that's been a really easy thing for me to write about, is small towns and tight-knit communities. Cozy mysteries also are filled with lots of quirky, eccentric characters, which makes them really fun to write. There's often a lot of humor and lightness in cozies, although they can deal with very deep themes as well. And in my books, I really like to have those two things play off each other. The really lightheartedness of the cozy, but then also having some really meaningful themes come through, like adoption or people who are veterans and kind of struggling to assimilate into society. The last thing that I want to say about cozies is that, as the name suggests, all of the crimes are painted in a cozy way. So you're not going to be having violence. It's going to be very downplayed if there is any, or it's going to be taking place off stage. And guidepost cozies are a little bit unique in that we don't feature murder in ours, which is sort of a hallmark of cozy mystery, but we usually just have theft, arson, kidnapping, missing persons, missing pets, identity theft, and crimes like that that are the hub of each of our stories. Guidepost cozies are also really unique in that they feature two mysteries in every book. So we have a contemporary mystery that's the main 90% of the storyline, and then we also have a 10% historical mystery that ties into the contemporary mystery. So I like to tell people, if you like history, mystery, or romance, you're going to like guidepost cozies because you have all of those things in every book that we publish. And then moving on really quickly, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about the two books that I'm featuring today. The first one is Honeybees and Legacies. And this one is really near and dear to my heart because it features a World War II veteran, and my paternal grandfather was a war hero in World War II. And so even though the story is completely fictionalized and nothing in there had anything to do with my grandfather, the fact that there's a very heroic veteran in this book is kind of a nod to him and a way to honor his legacy and remember him. In Honeybees and Legacies, it's set in Savannah, Georgia. It's one of my favorite towns. It's a fantastic place to write about, a lot of fun. In Honeybees and Legacies, there's a young beekeeper and honeymaker, Nikki Williams, who learned her trade from her veteran grandfather. And doing the research for this book, it was really interesting to find out that a lot of veterans who maybe are suffering from PTSD or maybe they have some physical handicaps after being in battle, a lot of them would turn to beekeeping. It was really popular after World War I, but also World War II. And so she learns this beekeeping trait from her grandfather, and her hives are being vandalized suddenly. And she doesn't know, is it somebody in the community? Why are they doing this? What's the reason behind it? And so we have a historical World War II thread that ties through the story and kind of connects to that contemporary mystery of who is vandalizing her beehives. Then the second book, this is To Heal a Heart. And this one is set pretty close by Savannah. It's in Charleston, South Carolina, another really beautiful historic town. And in this one, the protagonist, Evelyn, works at a hospital, and she's out taking a walk with her husband one day and witnesses an accident between the bicyclist and a runaway horse-drawn carriage. As she starts digging, she finds out that the accident was not an accident. There was intent behind it, and so she has to dig into all of the different suspects and various people in town and find out, who would be targeting this very likable guy, this bicyclist Paulson, who nobody seems to have any trouble with. And the historical thread in this one doesn't go back very far. It's the 1970s, so some people may say, oh, that's not even historical yet, let's not go there. But it features a very little known mother-daughter story, and just about how road to redemption can be long, but it's still one that you're going to get to the end point eventually. So that's all that I have for you all today, but I would love to talk to you more out of the book tables. Again, thank you so much everyone for coming. We really appreciate the wonderful turnout. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shaen. All right, so we're wrapping things up because I promised some people in this room that this would be done by 12. So I'm very much about time. Does anybody have a question, or should I read some of these that were in the bowl? Yes.
I am curious about the Parkland writers, so if you guys have any kind of contact information or whatever,
Yes.
if you have a card or anything.
If you'll stop by our table,
Okay.
we can get your email.
Okay.
And send it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think all of these have really been covered, except why would you or should you use a pen name instead of your own name? So how about one of you who actually did that, answer that question?
Well, I forgot to mention why Amy Kvell instead of Amy Welker. So the name Kvell means jubilant joy in Jewish Yiddish. And since everything I felt like I was going to be doing had to do with joy, and where I got that idea from was I was speaking to Jamie Grace. She's a famous life coach. She has like shows on Netflix and stuff. And she coached me for a period of time, and she was like, I changed my name because I wanted a separation of who I am doing. When you're doing business as yourself, you kind of need that separation in your business paperwork, for your family's sake, for legality reasons. And so I really wanted to be able to just kind of fly under the radar if I needed to and separate those things. But being in a small town, it's almost like I should never have done that because everybody's like, Amy Welker, come to the stage. I'm like, yeah, that's me. My pen name doesn't mean a thing. But when it comes to other places and I'm touring and things like that, I'll be introduced as Amy Kvell. So it does help kind of keep that separation in the big world.
Good to know. Shaen, do you have anything that you want to say about that?
Sure, yes. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I chose my name, and I think a lot of authors probably have a similar story with this, where they were maybe readers, they've been lifelong readers their entire life, or they had always had a dream of being a writer. It seems like a lot of times that takes root in childhood, and I wasn't any different. That was my situation as well. And one of my favorite authors when I was young was Lynn, who wrote the science fiction book A Wrinkle in Time. It's kind of considered a classic now. And I read her for years and years and years, and then I started digging into her biography and realized that her full name was Madeline Lingle Franklin Camp. And so Madeline Lingle was her first and middle names, and I thought as this, kind of nerdy teenager, okay, if I ever get to be an author someday, she's the one who kind of sparked my love of writing. I'm going to use my first and middle name kind of as a nod to her. So that's why I chose Shaen.
That is a great story. I appreciate you guys sharing that. So I'm guessing that there are some other questions that you might have from an individual author that we're going to be stepping out there in just a few minutes. Just got to get some things taken care of here. And so if you guys could all stay, Corey's going to get a picture of us in front of this lovely sign behind us. Last chance. Any questions? Thank you so much for coming. And really, those of you who came because I said, thank you, Corey.
If we buy the books, do you have to have cash or don't take credit card?
Okay, Deborah's asking if you want to buy a book. For me, I will have cash, check, or Venmo. I don't know if anybody has anything other than that.
I have Square, cash.
Okay.
Square?